Hi everyone, please subscribe my YouTube channel new more videos. The crystal wine glasses clinked against fine porcelain as our family gathered for our customary Sunday supper at the estate. I adjusted my plain black dress, feeling out of place next to my sister Caroline's designer gown and Mom's diamond necklace. My laptop bag holding 5 years of quantum research rested heavily by my side. "Victoria," Dad began, twirling his Cabernet, "we need to talk about your research funding." I paused, fork midway to my lips. The quantum stability algorithm I'd been developing since my MIT days was my life's passion. "What about it?" I asked. "The board thinks it's time to cut our losses," he said, sliding a folder across the polished oak table. "We're selling the research division." Caroline smirked behind her wine glass. "About time." That basement lab was a disgrace to the family name. "But we're on the verge of a breakthrough," I protested, my pulse quickening. "The quantum stability tests are showing strong results." "Strong isn't profitable," Dad interrupted. "Maxwell Enterprises needs guarantees, not experiments." "I've already arranged the sale to Global Innovations." Mom dabbed her mouth with a napkin. "Sweetheart, it's time to be practical." "Caroline's division makes real money by mimicking other companies' ideas," I muttered. "By earning revenue," Caroline snapped. "While you tinker with formulas in the shadows." Dad nudged the papers closer. "Sign the transfer documents." Global Innovations is offering $2 million for the whole project. $2 million. I nearly laughed. "Dad, the potential applications alone are useless without proof," he cut in. Sighing, my phone vibrated in my bag. Then again, and again. "Your little PP meeting?" Caroline sneered. With shaky hands, I pulled out my phone. 3 urgent messages from the patent office glowed on the screen. I opened the first, Quantum Stability Algorithm Patent Number. 457,892 approved. The second, Breakthrough Designation granted. The third stopped my heart. Initial bidding offer starting at $3.7 billion. Please advise. I looked up at Dad, who was already signing the transfer papers with his fountain pen. "About that signature?" "It's done," he declared, finishing with a flourish. "Time to step into reality, Victoria." "Interesting timing," I said coolly, turning my phone toward them. "The patent office seems to disagree about useless experiments." The pen slipped from Dad's hand, leaving an ink blot on the pristine white tablecloth. Caroline's wine glass halted midair. Mom's fork clattered against her plate. 3.7? Caroline choked. "Billion," I finished. "Not million. Billion." I stood, grabbing my laptop bag. "And that's just the opening bid." Dad lunged for the papers he'd signed, but I was quicker. "These," I held up the transfer documents, "are worthless. The patent's in my name, not Maxwell Enterprises. I filed it privately last week." "You can't do that," Dad stammered. "The company funded—" "My personal trust fund paid for it," I corrected. "The one Grandma left me." "I never used a cent of company money." I smiled, recalling Grandma's final words. "Don't let them dim your spark, darling." My phone buzzed again. "Excuse me," I said, reading the new message. "That's Google upping the bid to $4 billion. Shall we talk about who's in the real world now?" Silence fell over the dining room, broken only by the faint clink of Caroline's trembling wine glass against her teeth. I pulled out my tablet, displaying the quantum stability simulation that had consumed my life for 5 years. "Let me show you what you almost sold for pennies." The holographic display illuminated the room, showing quantum particles moving in perfect harmony. Dad's face paled as he grasped the implications. Quantum computing without decoherence, I explained, rotating the display. Perfect stability at room temperature. Every tech giant has been chasing this for decades. But your report showed erratic results, Caroline stammered. I chuckled softly. Those reports? Carefully planted fakes. I learned from watching you, Caroline, how you siphon off other divisions' ideas. Did you really think I'd leave my real work exposed? Mom's hands shook as she reached for the crystal decanter. Victoria, surely we can talk this over as a family. Like you discussed selling my life's work? I swiped through more patent documents on my tablet. Oh, and it's not just one patent. I filed 12. Quantum computing, encryption, storage, I listed, each word making Dad flinch. Conservative estimates value the full portfolio at $15 billion, but that's likely low given the military applications. Another message lit up my phone. Speaking of military applications, I smiled. That's the Department of Defense requesting an urgent meeting. Caroline knocked over her wine glass, red liquid staining the white tablecloth. You tricked us. No, sister dear. I protected myself. I stood, smoothing my dress, facing the family that was supposed to support me. Dad reached for the transfer papers again. As CEO of Maxwell Enterprises. You might want to hold off, I interrupted, pulling out one last document. Remember those board appointment papers you had me sign last month? The ones you didn't read closely? His hands froze. Page 47, paragraph 3, I suggested, where it outlines the automatic transfer of voting shares in case of attempted intellectual property theft. Mom gasped as Dad frantically flipped through the pages. As of, I checked my watch, 12 minutes ago, when you tried to force the sale of my research, I became the majority shareholder of Maxwell Enterprises. Phones buzzed around the table as the news broke. I placed my napkin down. I believe my first act as controlling shareholder will be to call an emergency board meeting. Dad, you'll want to prepare your retirement speech. I gathered my things, pausing at the dining room door. Oh, and Caroline, clear out your office. Your history of corporate theft is our first agenda item. The setting sun cast long shadows through the windows, highlighting the chaos I'd left behind. Spilled wine, scattered papers, and broken assumptions. My phone buzzed with another bid, but I wasn't interested in selling. I had grander plans for my quantum revolution, and this was only the start. The Maxwell Enterprises boardroom buzzed with tension the next morning. 14 board members sat stiffly in their leather chairs, glancing between me and Dad, who clutched the head of the table. This emergency meeting will come to order, the corporate secretary announced, voice unsteady. On the screens behind him, the company's stock had surged 47% on news of the quantum patent breakthrough. Before we start, Dad began, trying to sound commanding, I want to address these absurd claims. Let's stick to facts, I cut in, pulling out my tablet. Mr. Roberts, please distribute the documents. My attorney stepped forward, passing out thick folders. As you'll see, Ms. Maxwell's quantum technology patents are independently held. Furthermore, her acquisition of controlling shares is legally binding under Article 7 of the company charter. Impossible! Caroline burst out from her seat near Dad. She's never even been to a board meeting. I smiled, pulling up security footage on my tablet. Actually, I've attended every meeting for the past year. You just didn't notice me. The screens showed various maintenance workers and junior aides in the background of board meetings, each with different faces, different uniforms. All me, gathering intel. Facial modification tech, I explained, touching my now natural face. Another patent in my portfolio. Amazing how invisible you become when people think you're just pouring coffee. Dad's knuckles whitened on the armrests. The board won't tolerate this manipulation. The board, I interrupted, might be more interested in this. I clicked to the next screen, revealing detailed records of Caroline's corporate espionage. 5 years of stolen innovations, buried researchers, and ruined careers. All to prop up her so-called innovation division. Caroline's face went pale as her misdeeds filled the screens. Ms. Maxwell, Mr. Chen from the audit committee spoke up. What exactly are you proposing? I stood, walking to the window overlooking the city. Maxwell Enterprises was built on real innovation by my grandfather. Not theft, not intimidation, but genuine breakthroughs. I turned back to the board. I'm proposing we return to those values. My phone buzzed again. The bidding for the patents had hit $6 billion. I ignored it. Effective immediately. I'm restructuring the company. I pressed a button, and the door opened. A group of familiar faces entered. Scientists and engineers Caroline had pushed out over the years. They're your new department heads. This is outrageous, Dad sputtered. You can't just... I can. I nodded to Mr. Roberts, who handed out another set of documents. The quantum technology is just the start. Meet Project Phoenix. The screens filled with designs and simulations that made the board gasp. Even Caroline leaned forward, her anger briefly forgotten. What is this? Someone whispered. The future, I said simply. And it's already built. The screens showed a massive underground facility beneath my modest basement lab, a quantum computing center larger than 3 football fields. While you thought I was messing with equations, I explained, zooming in on different sections, I built the world's most advanced quantum research facility, funded entirely by my trust fund and private investors who actually value innovation. Impossible, Caroline breathed. The construction would have been noticed. By your corporate spies, I smirked. They were too busy stealing outdated tech to notice the real work happening right under their feet. Literally, I pulled up the facility's test results. 3 weeks ago, we achieved quantum supremacy. Last week, we solved protein folding problems that would take traditional supercomputers centuries. Yesterday, we cracked atmospheric carbon capture. The board members' phones buzzed as the markets reacted to each revelation. Maxwell Enterprises' stock was soaring. But that's not all, I continued, clicking to the next screen. Dr. Ramirez, would you like to explain your team's breakthrough? A woman Caroline had fired 2 years ago stepped forward. Using Ms. Maxwell's quantum stability algorithm, we've developed a room-temperature quantum computer the size of a laptop. The prototype is ready for demonstration, Dad finally spoke. You can't just... These people were fired, illegally fired, I corrected, after they refused to let Caroline steal their work. I nodded to security. Please escort my sister to her office to collect her belongings. The FBI's corporate fraud division has some questions for her. As Caroline was led out, shouting about family loyalty, I turned to the board. Now, let's discuss the real future of Maxwell Enterprises. Dad, you might want to take notes. It'll be your last board meeting. Mr. Chen raised his hand. The shareholders are thrilled, I finished, showing the stock ticker. We're up 89% and climbing because for the first time in years, Maxwell Enterprises is truly innovating. I moved to the head of the table, standing where Dad had ruled for 2 decades. Project Phoenix isn't just about quantum computing. It's about restoring what my grandfather built. A true technology leader, Dad stood shakily. You planned this? All of it. The patents, the shares, the facility. 5 years, I nodded. Since you dismissed my initial quantum proposal and gave the funding to Caroline's department instead. That day, I learned the best way to protect innovation is to shield it from those who'd steal it. My phone buzzed again. The bidding had reached $8 billion. I clicked ignore. But now, I smiled at the tense board members. We do things openly, starting with a complete overhaul of the executive team. Dr. Ramirez, you're our new head of innovation. Mr. Chen, I'd like you to lead the audit of Caroline's division. And Dad, he looked up, face ashen. The retirement package details are in your folder. I suggest taking it before the SEC investigation starts. The morning sun streamed through the boardroom windows, illuminating the quantum future on the screens. I had transformed from the overlooked daughter to the most powerful person in the room, and I was just beginning. 1 month later, Maxwell Enterprises' headquarters buzzed with a new energy. The stuffy executive floor had become an innovation hub, with glass walls replacing closed doors and researchers sharing ideas freely. I stood in my grandfather's restored office, now mine, watching the sunrise over the city. The quantum facility's latest results scrolled across my tablet. Cancer protein mapping solved in hours, climate models predicting changes down to the street level, quantum encryption that made current security look like a toy. Miss Maxwell, my assistant entered. Your mother's here, and the federal investigators need you to review Caroline's case files. I turned from the window, straightening my blazer. How's Mom looking? Different. No diamonds today, I nodded. Send her in. Mom entered cautiously, and I barely recognized her. Gone were the designer outfits and haughty demeanor. She wore simple business attire and carried a folder. The house is sold, she said quietly. Your father's retirement papers are signed. And Caroline, she's cooperating with the investigation. Mom sank into a chair. The evidence, it was worse than we thought. She didn't just steal ideas. She ruined lives. I know, I replied, pulling up files on the wall screen. That's why I tracked every researcher she crushed. Many are back, leading their own teams. You gave them their lives back. I gave them what they earned, I said, turning to face her. Something this family forgot how to do. Mom opened her folder with trembling hands. I found these in your father's study, your childhood sketches, quantum formulas. Even then you were trying to show us, and you saw what you wanted, I said gently. The quiet daughter, the basement nerd, the family let down. We were the let down, she whispered. Your grandfather would have been so proud. I walked to the wall where I'd hung his original patents next to mine. He knew before he died. He left me a letter with my trust fund. Watch out for the quiet ones. They're usually building empires. My phone buzzed. Another breakthrough from the quantum lab. Cancer trials with 98% success rates. The board meeting starts in 10 minutes, I said, gathering my files. We're announcing the new medical division today. Want to stay? Mom looked surprised. I don't have a role anymore. Actually, I pulled out a document. I have an idea. Grandfather's charitable foundation needs an overhaul. It should be funding young scientists, not gala dinners. Interested? Her eyes welled up. After everything we did, the past is done, I said firmly. The question is, what will you build now? The boardroom doors opened and Dr. Ramirez entered with the medical team, their faces glowing with excitement. Another quantum breakthrough, ready to change the world. Time to start the meeting, I told Mom. Are you in? She stood, squaring her shoulders. Yes. It's time I learned what real innovation looks like. As we walked to the boardroom, my phone buzzed again. The stock hit another record high. Caroline had pleaded guilty, and Dad's retirement was final. But those weren't the messages that mattered. The one that counted was from the quantum lab. Clinical trials approved. First patients ready. We're going to save lives. I smiled, thinking of my grandfather's words. The quiet ones build empires. And my empire was just beginning. This version maintains the original story's length, structure, and narrative,